All right, my guys. So the previous video, I, you know what, man? I really think you should look at this as entertainment because I think we inherently don't have fun with ourselves or don't know how to have fun with ourselves. Again, like society and the way we grow up and all that stuff kind of takes us away from ourselves. But to be able to reach a conclusion while having a thought and a discussion with yourself, it's just something that I really think all of us should kind of like just entertain. It is really a part of how we see the world. And a big part of it is us kind of like understanding where our thoughts are coming from. So here, the inspiration for this is basically a note, right? And the note is a feeling is there to tell you about a belief. Now, the past month or so, I dove into beliefs deeply. And I don't know if I actually like made a video about it where I actually explained to you guys how where I where I explained to you guys how I see beliefs and from where I kind of like I explained the flower and you cut the flower and shit like this. But this is all like recent stuff. It's funny because like once you open a portal in your head, it kind of like dives into like different segmented parts of your like mind's thoughts. We are diving deeper into like the iceberg of like our programming, our actual kind of logically approached consciousness, right? Because like it's funny, and I would use the whole. I don't know whoever kind of watches this, if they've ever like if somebody who's watching this has ever found themselves to be kind of like uh, have taken like some form of medicine that made you feel a bit high. And what you notice is like most of the time you're acting exactly the same way. You just feel like there's a bit of like detachment between where you normally are. And it's because like your wavelengths kind of like calm down a bit, and so you're not really connected as much as you did, or intensely connected. It's the anxiety that kind of like drives away. And you can still get it from that realization. But the idea behind it is that you kind of like you start watching yourself kind of like do stuff. And I think that's where the gurus of the world discuss the natural high on life and the thirst for kind of like just enjoying more of it. But anyways, a feeling is there to tell you about a belief. And again, I discussed triggers of society before many times, and I discussed how we interact with society, or at the very least, the world around us. Because what we do is we kind of like, and here I am in the actual place where I record videos or watch my fucking anime. So what happens is anytime I walk into this room, my mind is kind of like regulated to do one of these two things. I don't normally code here. So the goal of this table behind me, you guys can see it, is so that anytime I sit on that table, my mind kind of look at it as the environment for me to program. And that's basically the effort that I was kind of like moving towards. And on top of all of that, we kind of, without noticing, have these. Like anytime I go into the kitchen, it becomes like a place for me to cook, to eat, to do stuff. When you go to the bathrooms, the shower, stuff like this. And we create these and they become triggers. Our environment is filled with triggers. Uh, Seeing a person that you kind of like, that you play basketball with, the minute you see them, you kind of, your heart kind of gets excited. Not really to play basketball, but just kind of like they bring with them the environment. And seeing the guitar makes me want to kind of like sing a song or make some music or just kind of like random beatboxing that I used to do when I was like in my 20s. And all these like things are triggers. And like where did they come from though? Right? So maybe if we actually like right now we could discuss the whole a basketball is associated with basket. So anything with a basketball field or with a team or something like this. And that's actually the whole back and forth, correct? So the triggers are designed by us based on our, uh, I guess, opinion, but it's a subjective approach because yeah, a lot of people see a basketball and think of a basketball court, but they don't give a fuck, man. Maybe because they play football, maybe because they don't play sports at all, right? So it is very much a subjective thing for us. And when a feeling comes there, it's definitely because you believe something to be true. Is that a fair way to look at beliefs? And what I'm saying, man, sounds to me like it's perfectly like everyone knows that, and I know that. For some reason, following through as I explain them is making me feel differently about it. So this is something I'm sharing with you right now. So I was diving into beliefs, and here's the thing that happened. Uh, I did not handle a situation with a person that I know well. I basically, uh, I don't think I reacted, but I was very much 2 cups of coffee interaction. You know how after like 1 cup of coffee, you're kind of like a bit more excited. After 2 cups of coffee, you're more in the face. And 2 cups of 2 double espressos of interaction in deep. And a couple of things that were said kind of like triggered me to enter a kind of like mode because I had to express myself a certain kind of way to get over what was being told. And it wasn't targeting me at all. But what I did was I responded to what was happening exactly how I actually would, or how I handled it. I responded to what happened, how I handled it. And by doing that, I realized that I kind of like I didn't do anything wrong. It's the way I did it was wrong. And again, I didn't really like how it was happening from the other side. But again, it's not my place because this is literally how we interact. So the way I looked at it was a few triggers were shown for me to kind of like get into a mode that had to be structured by me directly for a period of time. But then after a while, I started real feeling bad, and then I was like, "Why am I feeling bad? If I'm feeling bad now, why didn't I feel bad back then, or why didn't I consider this stuff back then?" And I thought I was conscious enough for this stuff. But the reason I was feeling bad is not really because of what I did. The reason I was feeling bad is because of the outcome of what I did. And that was basically, that made me consider one thing. And I wrote it down naturally and I discussed it with myself. And I spent like 3, 4 days actually taking notes because the thoughts that were coming to me were kind of more like, she doesn't like you anymore. And he isn't happy as he might never want to talk to you. And then they would do this and this group and friendship. And it kind of boiled down to just kind of me wanting to be liked. And for some reason, I want to be liked for who I am, as we all do. But then we care too much for how we are being liked, or we care too much for other people's opinions instead of kind of like feeling at peace with our own. And that kind of like that feeling brought me to realize that what I wanted was approval slash attention. And of course, but like, from the other side. And it wasn't frustrating for me as much as it was kind of an understanding of how deep our actions are ingrained within us. But the idea behind it is really the fact that I had to feel some kind of way and not really question it, but kind of make sense out of it over and over and over and over and over until finally there was no sense to be made except for me to realize that the reason why I wanted to make sense over all of this stuff is because I believed that I wasn't being a good friend, or I never was a good friend, or I believed that I wasn't kind of worthy of a true friendship, that I had to be tested all the time, or I had to test people all the time. Like all of these started kind of like showing themselves in different ways. But the ultimate belief is accept me for who I am. And the ultimate need was to be accepted for who I am. Like even if I made a mistake, what's the big deal, right? 2 days later, we can sit again and have a discussion, and I'll apologize for things that you didn't like, and you'll apologize for things I didn't like, and move forward and all that good stuff. But again, like that any feeling that comes out is because we believe something from ourselves. And if it's a feeling that we don't like, it's not really our feeling, and it's probably because it's not really our belief. And it's probably because it's something ingrained in us, like really wanting approval from adults, simple thing, would ingrain many beliefs in us that we reciprocate in the real world. I don't know how I feel about this video. I love it. I love it. But like, there's a lot more. Like this past month, I've been like diving into beliefs and writing about them. I have my own story that I'm writing, my storyline, and every once in a while it kind of like shakes in different. But it's a video. Welcome to the channel.